What is diversity, equity, and inclusion, otherwise known as DEI? DEI is an important concept and practice that is relevant to both our personal and professional lives. Organizations that emphasize DEI are much more likely to have and maintain a healthy and productive work environment. However, DEI is often misunderstood, so it's important that we define these terms and explain their importance. Let's start with diversity. Diversity can be defined in two ways. One, the different identities and characteristics that make up every individual, also known as representation, and the social complexities that exist due to these differences. Representation refers to characteristics that are both visible and invisible. Visible representation is an identity that is easier for us to see or characterize, such as race, gender, or age. Invisible representation is an identity that is harder for us to see or characterize, such as education level or political affiliation. To better understand representation, let's look at a diversity wheel. The inside of the wheel refers to our primary characteristics or social groups, such as race, gender, and sexual orientation. Sometimes primary characteristics are visible, but not all the time. For example, it might be easier for us to identify someone's race, but not their sexual orientation. The important thing to understand about primary identities is that we have little influence over them. The outside of the wheel refers to our secondary characteristics or social groups, such as our political affiliation, religion, and education level. Secondary characteristics are generally identities that we have some choice over. They are also mostly, if not all, invisible. So, why is it important that we are aware of our identities? Consider the second definition of diversity. Acknowledging the social complexities that exist due to our differences. Each human being does not hold a single identity. We are all diverse and have multiple identities that may intersect with one another. For example, Jenna identifies as a cisgendered woman, a person of color, and heterosexual, just to name a few. Due to the social complexities in our world, some of her identities may present themselves as advantageous, and some may present themselves as disadvantageous. It's important to be aware of our similarities, differences, and lived experiences to help us better understand each other and the world. Instead of assuming that all humans are treated equally, we must recognize that in many societies, this is not the case. Acknowledging this requires us to be mindful and aware of our thoughts, words, and actions. Before getting to the E, let's focus on the I in DEI, which stands for inclusion. Just like diversity, inclusion can be defined in a few ways. Inclusion is, 1, an environment of belonging, respect, and connection where people of different identities can feel valued. 2, the richness of ideas, backgrounds, and perspectives to create human and business value. And 3, a culture that provides equitable opportunities for employees and candidates to be successful and fully contribute to the organization. Inclusion is about intentionally working to make all people feel welcomed and valued. When people are intentionally included, it ensures more power sharing in decision making. According to a SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management report, fostering inclusive environments increases employee engagement and reduces their likelihood of leaving by 87%. That's a significant reason for all employers to focus on inclusion in every area. Finally, let's talk about the E in DEI, which stands for equity. Equity is not the same as equality, although the terms are sometimes used interchangeably. Equality is the concept that all people, regardless of their identities, are treated equally and are presented with the same access to opportunities and resources. It's the idea that if people just work hard, they can achieve success. In theory, equality is not a bad thing. It's a concept that many hope to achieve for all people. However, it has limitations. Imagine that everyone who asked for a bicycle was given the same model, 2 wheels and a handlebar, even if one individual was a wheelchair user. Although this group has been treated equally, the person who uses a wheelchair hasn't gotten their needs met. No matter how hard this person works, they won't be able to use the bicycle they have been given. Unfortunately, we are not all born equal. In our world and in the United States alone, there are many institutional, economic, and psychological barriers that certain groups experience, making it harder to have access to the same opportunities and resources as those who have more advantages. This is where equity comes in. Equity recognizes that people are not born, nor do they come to the table with the same resources or opportunities. To achieve equity is to grant access and opportunities to those who don't have them, making the playing field fairer. In our bicycle example, it might mean offering different models to users with different physical abilities. Someone committed to equity provides a fair distribution of resources to everyone, accounting for differences. Learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion is a journey. Everyone travels at their own pace on their own individual paths. Understanding and tackling inequity is not easy, but can be attainable. And becoming more aware of ourselves and the world around us is the first step.